Díí a chuirde agus gine úsle. Bonjour. Comment ça va? Salut. Hello. Quay. My name is Dr. Frances Scully, and today is Saturday, May 3rd, and I am wishing to send blessings, blessings out to a lot of people. And I'm also hoping to go back to studying and practicing and possibly even teaching wisdom healing qigong with the lovely local teacher Sheila Leonard in Newfoundland and Labrador, beautiful Sheila, and with the wonderful people at the Chi Center in Santa Fe, particularly the founder, Master Ming Tong Gu, and his beautiful wife, Lin Ling Zi, and a whole host of beautiful people who practice wisdom healing Qigong, a form of Qigong who, according to Master Ming Tong Gu, was created by Dr. Peng in China, who wrote 7 books, I presume in Mandarin. Well, definitely, I would think Mandarin, but I don't know that for sure. But I mean, I don't know which version because there are different versions and so on. But anyway, he wrote 7 books about his experience with wisdom healing qigong, and he was a Western trained physician. And according to Master Ming Tong Gu, who was previously a mathematician and an artist, and has multiple masters from prestigious universities in the US, and is now this wonderful wisdom healing qigong teacher. So he says that Dr. Peng had kept notes of the people who came to learn this qigong with him, thousands at a time in China, and he noted their medical history and their response, and it was positive. Now, I haven't found those books or anything else. I don't have time in this lifetime to do all that. But I know that there have been some randomized clinical trials comparing Tai Chi, which is one form of Qigong, with physio in patients with Parkinson's, for example, and that study was positive. It found that learning Tai Chi was beneficial to people who have Parkinson's. Now, in Western medicine, everything is compartmentalized. So it takes a long time to show if something works or not, because usually studies are done in very specific populations of patients, and it's not considered, for many reasons, you try not to extrapolate from one subgroup to another and so on, because you could be comparing apples and oranges and you may not be getting really helpful data. And we can talk about that in a minute, but sorry, I need a drink there. But for now, I will just do the way the wisdom healing qigong people do something called how la, how la, how la. And if you notice this hand trembling, I do not have Parkinson's, thank the Lord, but I was born with a tremor. So I have had some neurological problems that come and go since childhood. So, and I live with them. So there. So why am I talking about blessings? Well, because I understand we're at least 8 billion people. I forget what the exact number is now, and I'm sure we don't know the exact number, but there's a lot of us here at this moment in time. And and humans are never perfect. I'm most imperfect. you're interested, I'll give you a long list of my imperfections, which will bore you to death, litany of them, but I'm very imperfect. One of my imperfections is that I have been trying for years to establish a daily wisdom healing qigong movement practice, and I haven't. Why haven't I? Because I don't have the patience. Wisdom healing qigong's the movement's very slow a lot of the time. And I have come to the conclusion, as both a very experienced physician, hematologist, oncologist, and now, unfortunately, an experienced patient, which I'm not a patient, so this is not going well. But as a patient, I have come to the conclusion that possibly, this is a hypothesis, nothing proven, just an opinion, just an idea, that may be the reason because Master Ming Tong starts with a movement he calls bone marrow and spinal twist. And I'm thinking the reason this is effective, a good movement to start with or even to imagine doing, is that he does it extremely slowly. Now, prior to July 2017, prior to May and June 2017, when I was diagnosed with stage 2A triple positive breast cancer, I, at that moment, was relatively fit. I have the self-discipline of a flea. So I've always, been one of these people who didn't do anything really regularly. And, in my defense, I went to medical school when I was only 17, and I worked very hard in medical school and working to try and have money to go to medical school or just for my basic needs. And then as soon as I started work, I was an intern in 1979 and we worked day and night. And I went on, I did 12 years of training and working day and night, and then I did a lot of call. So I never had a regular schedule. And then when I should have been able to, and I wasn't planning to retire in 2017 either, but I never had a regular schedule. So I never had a regular practice, but I love to walk, I love to swim, and I loved yoga and then later Pilates. So I did a bit of all those things until my poor husband, my prince, Dr. Joe Nguyen, who was a very handsome prince when I met him, gorgeous, in Toronto, 1987. He used to joke that he was the most handsome Vietnamese in Toronto, and he was very handsome man at that time. And and very charming, very witty as well, deadly wit, which was the whole thing. Anyway, he became ill soon after, just around the time we were getting married. He was diagnosed with a medulloblastoma, a very aggressive tumor of the medulla at the base of the brain. And poor fella, he had to have emergency surgery. And then he was sort of well for our wedding. And he always said that I robbed the cradle because he was 351 days younger than me. And because, he said I got him when he was down, which is true. He was recovering from neurosurgery. However, he was pretty well then. When he really got down was after that, when he had whole brain irradiation, which is a very difficult treatment. And that was really, really tough. And now that I've had chronic illness myself, I'm even more amazed at how determined he was. He was very self-disciplined. He did his practice every day. He did everything he was supposed to do. So it's very sad that he had so much illness and so on. And there was no family history of cancer in his family. And I blame Agent Orange and all the other toxic cancer and illness causing chemicals that were poured, oceans of them were poured into the beautiful, beautiful forests of Southeast Asia. Now, the argument, the thought, the sick thought behind that was that by deforesting Southeast Vietnam and Laos and Burma or whatever, that whole area, Cambodia, they would be able to see the Viet Cong soldiers they were trying to kill, and uh, anyway, that's the whole thinking behind developing these awful, deadly, cancer and illness causing chemicals that not and they're also currently in the group that are called forever chemicals, FECs, meaning that currently when they go into nature, so nature is magnificent. Nature does not waste. And the intelligence behind nature and life is extraordinary. People say in an adult male body there are 36 trillion cells. Believe you, I haven't tried counting them. I forget how many they say in an adult female. Maybe anyway, but there's a lot. And all those cells, so there's an infinity out there, and there are all these wonderful, wonderful people who study astrophysics and the infinite universe, which doesn't particularly appeal to me. And then there's this internal infinity. So in each of us, we have these trillions of cells, and inside the cell each cell is an extraordinary thing, extraordinary, very complicated. And there's membranes, so they're like border crossings. What can go across this membrane and not, and so on. And in some ways, invasive cancer could be viewed in some ways as a communication problem, a timing problem as well, a life cycle problem, lack of harmony. Because cells, depending on their role in the body, like in the structural sense, they touch against each other and they communicate, and they live a certain length. Then the cells that circulate in our blood. Now, I am by training a hematologist oncologist, so I'm sorry. I know a lot of people don't like sight of blood, and I'm not that fond of it myself. The sight of spilled blood, no. But I'm just saying. So people, if blood gives you the heebie-jeebies, sorry, I am very squeamish actually, which is true. But it really was hard for me to go to medical school, and it is hard for me to this day to see anything really rotting and awful. But I can do it when I'm trying to help. But I have to really work it. Anyway, it doesn't attract me at all. So, but blood is a magnificent fluid. Oh my heavens, magnificent. And one of my biggest wishes out of all this is to persuade as many people as possible that what we must cultivate, increase, value, enjoy is animate intelligence. Animate intelligence is the intelligence of life. And all the Canadians who are watching the playoffs, I am not allowed by my sons say much about sports because I embarrass them, because I have two lovely, beautiful sons, and they love sports and they're very knowledgeable. They know all the stats. Not so much hockey, actually. Like their biggest one. Well, it varies, but one of my sons loves American football. Oh my gosh, he loves American football. And I have to try and remember which team he follows. Oh, anyway, I think I know, but I don't say anything because I could get into a lot of trouble. And then, and he also loves soccer. My other son likes soccer, and they play soccer, and then they love basketball. But they probably like any sports because their friends like sports. So right now, my youngest son in particular, and even this year, I'm into trying to follow a little bit the hockey, the Canadian hockey playoffs, because I'm not sure what's happening now, but there were 5 Canadian teams in the running, and my probably is down now again. I don't say much because the next thing is I'll say something wrong, embarrass everybody, make a show of myself. So I have to be careful about the sports thing. All right, now where were we? But oh yes, where I was if you want an example of an animate intelligence, look at a hockey player. That's animate intelligence. That's animate intelligence. Those hockey players onto the ice, going for that puck, watching that puck. Animate intelligence. People. When you think about it, what are the most watched events on the planet? Oh, I would like it to be, peace activism and meditation, but no, that's not going to happen. So let's forget that. Forget I said that. But let's just go with what are the most popular events? The Olympics, competitive sports, and different team sports. I think, the Super Bowl maybe. Again, I could get myself into trouble. I better shut up. But people love. What is it they love about the sports? Well, there's the team thing and the competition and all that sort of thing. People love that and the up and down nature of it. Which, by the way, for all you coercive control type peoples, that's the point. You should be able. The whole thing of watching all the sports is to see the up and down, right? Anyway, but animate intelligence, all those people that people love and admire and want their children to be like, have tremendous animate intelligence. Animate intelligence is the intelligence that allows people to move beautifully. All those ballerinas, the Bolshoi Ballet. Yeah. And all those classical Indian dancers. Oh my God, I love them. There's not a dance form I don't love. And the Georgian dancers. Oh, and the peacock dance from China. Oh, and I love the circle dances, the hoop dancers. Oh, the First Nations, Native American people that do the hoop dancing. Oh, anyway, all of those beautiful movements, these are examples, people of animate intelligence. Oh, what got her name right? Simone Biles, that beautiful, beautiful American gymnast. Fantastic girl. I mean, how does she do it? Like she flies through the air. Incredible. Summer McIntosh, the lovely swimmer, flies through the pool. Yeah, so this is animate intelligence, darlings. And it's extraordinarily complex. Extraordinarily complex. Getting all those trillion cells to work together so you can fly across the ice or through the pool or through the air requires tremendous intelligence. You need all sorts of synapses firing together. The networking involved is a trillion times more complicated than all the artificial intelligence that people are throwing at you. Please, please, please go and look up Jeremy Lent, who's an absolutely brilliant Anglo-American polymath. And I'm sure his third book should be out now. The Man Never Stops. He's got massive books. I'm looking around to see if I have one of them handy to show you. But he's written the Patterning Instinct and the Web of Meaning. And I like the Web of Meaning more than the Patterning Instinct. But everything Jeremy does is fascinating. He's a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant man. And he's very patient. I've done courses with him online. He's very patient, lovely, kind, lovely man, and brilliant. Can't keep up with them, but he's great, and he's the founder of the Deep Transformation Network. If you really want to be stimulated intellectually, get out some of Jeremy's books and look at his website and join a course with him, and I tell you won't be bored. All right. So, but I'm raving on there because he was the person who says early on, I think it's in the Web of Meaning, because quite a lot of it's available on a website, you can look it up. he has this great, and he gives great talks about animate intelligence. So, as I said, by training, I trained in pediatrics and then I trained in hematology. I did a bit of hematology and then I did clinical hematology, and I worked as a children's cancer specialist in New Brunswick, 1992 to 1990. Yeah, no, it was 8 years. So something wrong with the math there. 6 years, 1992 to 1997 anyway. And then I worked then I came with my late husband, Dr. Dion, to work here in St. John's. I had the privilege of working at Memorial University Med School and at the Health Sciences Centre. And I still have the privilege of having one little clinic there a week every Wednesday. And I just do benign hematology now. So a non-urgent outpatient, so I'm not a real hematologist at all these days. However, that I still love blood and what an amazing fluid it is. Extraordinary. Just think about it. The way it has to flow through our bodies and then out into all the little capillaries and then come all the way back. Extraordinary. You think Mr. Lube is good. The blood is really amazing, and the way it flows is amazing. And anyway, I will stop there for a minute. But I will mention that the reason our blood is red is because of a very, very, very important oxygen and carbon dioxide carrying molecule called hemoglobin. And other absolutely brilliant polymath is Diana Kroger Beresford. And she's one of these tree people. She's an extraordinary professor of not sure, might be pharmacology. I'm not sure exactly. She's a brilliant scientist, really good. And she also trained in traditional Irish ways of living and healing, and spoke the Irish language because her mother was Irish and her father was English. And terrible tragedy, she lost both parents when she was 12. She was orphaned and went through a very difficult time. And thank God she came out of all that. And so she had this traditional upbringing in, I'm forgetting the name right now, and that's funny because I do know it. But anyway, in a very traditional part of Ireland, somewhere on the Cork and Kerry border, I think. Why can I not think of the word for it? Because the word I discovered, because people are always talking about it, because it's very famous for traditional sean-nós music as well. And the word translates into English as reeds. Rushes. Anyway, I'll have to get back to check that. Anyway, she was reared in that, or she spent time with people who taught her traditional Celtic knowledge. And then she also went off to university and did PhDs, and God knows what she didn't do. It was a brilliant, brilliant woman and great speaker, writer, Diana Kroger Beresford. And she's the person who taught me that chlorophyll is the mirror molecule of hemoglobin. And she maintains that's why red and green are popular as Christmas colors. So our planet, our little planet, home planet, doesn't naturally have oxygen in its atmosphere. And when we call the trees our friends and the algae, well, I talk about the trees, but the algae are there. They are essential because without them, we won't have oxygen. And without oxygen, we can't live. So anyway, so we need to breathe in the oxygen, which is picked up by the hemoglobin and goes right through, is pumped out, then goes through the lungs, and our whole very complicated, brilliant cardiorespiratory system goes into all the different capillaries, and then it releases the oxygen that we need and then it picks up the carbon dioxide that we don't need, and then through the venous system, this is all returned, and then we breathe it out. Whereas the beautiful tree, the one with or plant, anything with the green from the chlorophyll, it takes in the carbon dioxide and breathes out the oxygen. So that's why it's so important, or it's so healthy, to have trees who are our friends. And ideally, I did get back to starting to teach the wonderful, brilliant 8-week compassion cultivation training meditation course this Friday. And I was pointing out to people, like, ideally, weather permitting, circumstances permitting, it's lovely to meditate by a tree, because you're sharing that interaction. You're giving out the carbon dioxide and they're giving the oxygen. And in addition, Professor Kroger Beresford explains that trees also produce pinons and things, so in Japan, there's this 1,000-year-old tradition of forest bathing, and people really believe that getting into the forest, and particularly they like, if at all possible, they might walk in shorts and things, because they believe that exposing their skins to the trees and that is very healthy. They've been doing that for 1,000 years, and they're right because trees actually produce these different products through aerosols. And I should pay attention to this. In fact, I'll have to try and get hold of Professor Beresford Kroger, because she told me this and I didn't write it. I'm such a dingbat. Because she says there's a particular type of fir that actually produces a pinon that is very protective against breast cancer. And moi, having all the breast cancer problems, would like to make sure I have one of those planted in my yard, and I can get the pinons. Yeah. So, and find out exactly how to do that, because she explained it all to me, and I should have written it all down. That was a while ago, and I forgot. Yeah. So, yes. So, but now what I want to do is just to send a blessing for today, because we are all interconnected. Aristotle got it wrong, my darlings. Totally wrong. Totally wrong. Yeah, he was wrong about many things. And Jeremy Lent talks about the amplification of cultural flaws. So the two things I have that, well, there's a whole bunch of things Jeremy Lent inspired me to look into and do. So it was Jeremy Lent who first mentioned the term qualia to me, the fact that we each have an individual experience of life. And so this issue of how we balance diversity and unity has always been an issue. And that's why the beautiful, like, Sheng philosophers, the I Ching, Lao Tzu, the Taoists, they have all these beautiful poems and images about restoring the harmony. Because in addition to each of us having these trillions of cells, we're also constantly changing. Our cells are constantly changing. Everything's constantly changing. And we are constantly interacting with our environment. And so are the other 8 billion. I am doing that, and so are 8 billion people, right? So there's a lot happening out there. Now, neuroscientists, another person who now is not with us in this life, whose scholarship has really, really, really touched my heart and helped me, was Rabbi Jonathan Sachs. And brilliant rabbi, beautiful man. And you can find a lot of his videos if you look. Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, well worth it. Oh, such a beautiful mind. So subtle, so gorgeous. And one of my friends, Dr. Barrett, had given me a book called The Great Partnership, which was written by Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, and that's a wonderful book. And at that time, I forget exactly, it was written like a couple of decades ago. He was talking, because a lot of neuroscientists at that time, we all, people used to talk about left brain and right brain. And left brain, it was felt to be the part of the brain that works more with concepts. And right brain was more like the creative side or whatever. So, but now what neuroscientists talk about is animate intelligence and conceptual intelligence. So, in some ways, conceptual intelligence would sort of cover more like what we consider the left brain things, or the anterior frontal brain, where the sort of the brain we're used when we're doing types of mathematical calculations, or, we're designing something very complex, a chemotherapy protocol, looking at analyzing data from a clinical trial, planning a clinical trial. That all involves conceptual thinking. Now, the most important part of all this is that, as Jeremy Lent will explain to you, and look him up, animate intelligence is at the heart of life. And I just had an email from the Economist. God love them, the Economist. And there they're going again. They're talking about neuroscience and AI. Darlings, you are missing the point. Darlings, you are missing the point. People, we have brains. And so does every living creature. Maybe brains is not the right word for trees, because they don't have their types of intelligence are, they don't have a brain or a heart the way we do. But trees, and one of the things about trees is many of them are designed to last to live very long periods of time. Some can even live thousands of years. It's extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary. And there's a whole bunch of these incredible, I call them the tree writers. They write about trees. Now, my favorite would be Thomas Pakenham. I'm just looking around to see if I can find one of his books, and I hope I'm saying his name correctly. And I hope he's doing well, because I think he's in his 90s now. Extraordinary man. And he's one of these extraordinary, brilliant, comes from one of these Anglo-Irish families. They're all extraordinary. Well, not all, but I mean, some of them are very, very, very gifted people. And he, by formal training, is, I think, a historian. He's certainly written a lot about the colonization of Africa. I think I haven't got those books. I can't give up with everything. But he also inherited property in Ireland, and I'd have to look exactly where it is, in the Midlands, and from an uncle, I think. And then he's lived there a lot of his time, and he's put a lot of time into restoring this estate, and he loves trees, and he does all sorts of very, very creative, brilliant man. He does all sorts of amazing things. And he was, or is, involved with a tree society, or the tree society in Ireland anyway. So the first book I got of his a long time ago now was called Meetings with Remarkable Trees, which of course is like a pun on the book by Gurdjieff, Meetings with Remarkable Men, I think. Now, I don't know if he says that in the book, but I'm sure that's what it's from. Anyway, so that was the first book I got of his, and that's a great book. It's he has photographs of these extraordinary trees. And the first one are all trees, I think, in Great Britain and on the islands of Great Britain and the Republic of Ireland, or Ireland, or whatever. So now, let me be clear. I'm into harmony, healing, recovery, accepting, moving past colonization. I don't think we should be continuing colonization. And that's one of the many things that Aristotle got so terribly wrong. And that's why I'm so ticked off with people who talk about Aristotle. Aristotle was wrong about so many things. Specifically, he was wrong about colonization. He's wrong about coercive control. He's wrong about brutality. He's wrong about dividing the heart and the mind. He's wrong about dividing the body and the mind. And he's wrong about slavery. And he's wrong about domination. He's wrong about so many things. And he's the father of so many wrong things. And he has been, his woolly-headed, wrong, stupid thinking has been perpetuated and amplified through all the different Stoics, Cicero, Caesar. It goes on and on and on, right up to Locke, Descartes, Hobbes, Peel, and Musk. Dualistic thinking, compartmentalization, linear thinking. Totally unphysiological. My darlings, we cannot separate our brains from our hearts. They are connected. Well, you can, but it's not a good thing. Beheading people is not a good thing. I don't recommend it at all. And in fact, I was trying yesterday to make some sort of a post about the Irish group Kneecap and Coachella and their desire to support the suffering Palestinian people and the poor children and the people in Gaza. And I am actually dedicating this little chat and a practice I do today towards ending the bloodbath in Gaza, ending it, and liberating the children of Gaza from the grips of Hamas, the children, the people, everybody in Gaza from Hamas, and all the people of the region, liberating them from the grips of these disgusting militias, and liberating the great people of Israel from the current government and Netanyahu and whatever their names is, all those mixed up extremist, awful, trauma blind, traumatized individuals. Oh God. Anyway, so we need an end to that bloodbath, and we need healing. And those little puppets, those little girls that are wandering around in that hellhole without anybody looking after them, they need to be looked after. Those little sweetie pies. And way too many beautiful little Palestinian boys and girls have died or been mutilated or orphaned. Way too many Palestinians have lost their families, their parents, their mothers, aunts, sisters, and way too many ambulance drivers and bakers and bread makers and creatives and cooks and doctors and poets and nurses and journalists. Oh my heavens. Journalists and ambulance drivers and people trying to help, people trying to speak the truth, tell the truth, are being murdered, tortured, mutilated, left, right, and centre. And felon Trump and lying Carolina Levitt, oh my heavens. and the entire administration now, and the GOP people who support them, and everybody who supports them, Thiel, Musk, Zuckerberg, Bavas, Bannon, all the authors behind Project 2025, Homan, whoa, you are all sending out so much negativity. And the problem is we are all interconnected. Aristotle, the Stoics, got it all wrong. We are interconnected. Yes, Donald Trump. Yes, Godzilla Musk. Yes, Larry Page. Yes, the whole bloody lot of you. We are interconnected. I'm stuck with all of you from now until eternity. Holy Mother of God. Oh, yeah, that is the problem. We are all interconnected. Anyway, so and much as I try, I'm not very good at any of this stuff. I'm no Thai. I'm no Zen master or Zen woman. Yeah, I'm not. I'd like to be, but I'm not. And Thai, which is a Vietnamese word for teacher, which is the Vietnamese referred to who I would call Thich Nhat Hanh, and I'm probably really murdering the way I pronounce his name. My husband always announced that I never said his name right. Still, I have to still try and do it. And depending on how you say it, it meant all different things. The way it was supposed to mean something very precious. But if you said Jojo, it meant run away or something. Another version was like strawberry, and he loved explaining all that to people. And it was funny because for the 20, well, we were married 27 years, and for a lot of that time, anytime we went somewhere, say to a bank, to renew our mortgage, something like that, wherever we were meeting somebody, all sorts of lovely Canadians would sort of grab me and say, how do I say your husband's name? Because they were trying to be kind and polite and nice, and they didn't want to insult him saying his name wrong. And I used to say, ask him, because he'll tell you that I'm not saying it right. And what was hilarious was, as I said, he was very happy to explain to people lots of things. He loved to teach, actually. He was a great teacher, loved it. And he loved to explain about the Vietnamese language and how it's tonal and all this things. So he was very happy to explain to people, how to say his name correctly. Now, to add to everything, there are like 3 major dialects of Vietnamese language. And so there's the northern dialect. And I do like languages and to learn languages. I was starting off, I was very keen to learn Vietnamese and speak Vietnamese. But one of the many problems was that often all languages have different dialects. They all have different dialects. And people actually speak their own dialect, and then they overlap, and sometimes they can understand each other and sometimes not, and so on. So that's just the way languages are. But then there's officialdom everywhere. And somebody has to have an official language. And of course, in the most recent iteration of the history of beautiful Vietnam, the North has conquered the South. And the Northern, so when, 1987, when I met my husband and so on, when I went to look for Vietnamese language tools, they all had the Northern accent. And even worse, I find the Northern accent easier to understand and pronounce. Terrible. And of course, my beautiful husband, who was a refugee, he came from away, which was the Imperial Center. And that's the other thing. His last name, everybody was asking me, how do you say his name? The G is silent. Nguyen. And I always tell people it's well worth your while learning that name, Nguyen, because there's a lot of them. I don't know how many, six, like a very high proportion, maybe two-thirds or something of the people in Vietnam, a huge part of the diaspora, all have the same last name, Nguyen. And that, why is that? Because in imperial Vietnam, the emperor was God, the usual imperial stuff, just like Queen Victoria, whatever. They're all, God, like, Emperor Donald wants to be Emperor Donald. All these people want to be absolute monarchs. Anyway, so, and then they very much were in imperial Vietnam. So all the poor peasants, all the poor regular people, all the people who did all the work, all the people who produced the rice and who made the most exquisite, like, art, like the beautiful porcelain and silk and, oh my heavens, the arts, the crafts in Asia are just extraordinary. These and this mother of pearl lacquer work and so on. Oh, they're just incredible. Anyway, so, but all the people who did all this stuff, and then all the people who were the artists and the opera singers and the dancers and so on, and who, anyway, all the people who did all the work, made things, grew things, fished, all those people, generally only had a first name. And in fact, I don't know, because culture is always changing, but it was, in my husband's generation, that your first name was your more, if you wanted to be polite, you wouldn't say Mr. Nguyen. In my husband's case, you would say Mr. Joe, because it's the first name that really is so important. So it's the reverse of, so if you want to be more formal with me, you would call me Dr. Scully, or maybe Mrs. Scully, or anyway, but you'd use my surname or my last name, and you would not use my first name. Now more and more, if I call anywhere, they're saying, like, can I call you Francis? I'm like, go ahead. But anyway, but knock yourself out. But it's so in that tradition, and then people took the name of whoever was of that dynasty, probably to survive or out of deference or whatever else. And the last dynasty in Vietnam were the Nguyens. So that's why there's so many Nguyens all over the place. Yeah. So, and it was funny because when we first got married in 1987, I'd have various Irish friends and family, and they'd be calling me, and they'd be like, "Oh, did you see?" And some Nguyen would have won something, done something, and I was like, "Is that one of your relatives?" And I'm saying, "Well, yes, probably, but distant." There's like 60 million of them. So anyway, worth learning how to spell Nguyen, because a lot of them. Then, but the thing about my husband was we'd have all these people, grabbing me to say, "How do I say his name?" And I said, "Don't worry, just ask him. He's quite happy with that." But what he was never happy with was people who did not spell his first name correctly, because he used to say, "There's only 4 letters, only 4 letters. How can they not get that right?" And the reason they wouldn't get it right is because his first name was spelled Chau, and then it gets complicated because on the A there's a little thing that I don't know what you call it, but let's not worry about that. But the 4 letters are Chau, but then I could see it happened all the time. We'd get letters and it would say Chan, because somebody would have looked Chau and they were like, that can't be right, because they'd have heard Chan, because that's a Chinese name, and they'll have come across that. So they're like, no. So they put an N instead of a U, and that drove them crazy. Because why? Anybody know any Vietnamese? Anything about Vietnam? Well, because the problem with us humans is we're not good with borders, and we're not necessarily good with our neighbors, and we're not good at a lot of things. Anyway, but the Vietnamese and the Chinese have fought. My husband could tell you every battle going back 2,000 years. Just as an Irish person, I could tell you every battle going back how many years? Well, at least Brian Burrows, so at least 1,000. So yeah, so yeah, so the Vietnamese and the Chinese traditionally had the same sort of relationship um, as the Irish and the English, let's say, or the English and the French, let's say, and the French and the German, or the French and the Belgians, or the Spanish and the Portuguese. Oh my God, they're bad. And now, thanks to felon Trump, he'd like the same thing going on between US and Canada, but people are not that stupid, Trump, you know? In fact, now I have to look up how to say that phrase. No, that means a windy day is not good for thatching. But anyway, in Irish, there's a phrase which I must learn to say in the Irish language, which is it's an ill wind that blows nobody good. So the ill wind that is blowing from Trump and Project 2025 and some members of the Heritage Foundation, because there are some who I've listened to who are wonderful, but some others definitely not. And anyway, basically, it's the same old story. Abuse is not good for anybody. Brutality is not good for anybody. Coercive control is not good for anybody. Cruelty is not good for anybody. Domination is not good for anybody. Elitism is not good for anybody. And for God's sake, Holy Mother of God. Now, this is something I have to say here. Why would you worship a holy God that plays favorites? Like, if you're just an ordinary human mother and you play favorites with your sons or your daughters, or you favor your sons over your daughters, or your daughters over your, whatever you do. If you're an ordinary human mother, if you're a mammy, which the Irish say, a mammy, and you favor one child over another, which people do, they do all the time, but is that considered a good thing? Nope, it is not. It is not. We expect a human parent. Now, we wouldn't be in the mess we're in now if more fathers were decent fathers, would we? Why is Elon Musk the mess he is? Because of Errol. God, Errol Musk, such a creep. Such a creep. Ooh, no wonder poor Elon is messed up. God bless him. Poor man. Terribly traumatized by his father. I'm sure the same thing happened with Peter Thiel. Poor man. He was, men mess up young men. It happens so often. There are so few good fathers, but there are some very good, very, very good fathers. Yeah. And God love him. So in my case, I'm in another group with a beautiful American lady, and she has some ancestor who did some very bad stuff, and she calls him the scoundrel or something. She's writing a book about it. She's written books and everything. Lovely person. But anyway, so she doesn't like this. One of her ancestors did horrible things, and so she calls him the scoundrel. Well, anyway, I don't know who the heck my biologic father was, but I have a good feeling that he was a scoundrel. Now, and that's not just a feeling, because I did often meet with a lovely social worker in Cúnaimh, which was the Irish adoption agency, and they used to have a little office on St. Anne Street. And I love that part of Dublin. Love it. I love that area. And I was there last summer, and I love the bookstore, Figgis and Haggis. Oh, I just love it. I've not really been into Trinity College. I didn't go to Trinity College. I've just walked around the edge of it. And I've never even seen like the famous library. So many things I have not seen. But I just love that part of Dublin. It's one of the places I really love, and if I get a chance to go back and go into Hodges and Figgis, they were renovating last year when I was there. I'm so happy. And then on Dawson Street, there's a real rare old bookstore. I've never been in there either because I'm not into rare old books, but wonderful. I'm not against it either, but I'm just saying. And there's there's a super famous pub, and Davy Byrne. I think it's Davy Byrne. It's very famous. And one of my classmates from medical school, a wonderful doctor, he's probably a professor too. I think he's a professor, Kieran Duffy, with a wonderful wife. She might be a professor too, Karen Duffy, and we were lovely people, brilliant people. They're in Ottawa now. But anyway, he's and I have to thank Karen if you're around, because when we were in pre-med together, he's such a good person. I wasn't good at taking notes, and I had a long journey I used to have to, it took me well over an hour, sometimes 2 hours to get to, at that time we started off in Alsford Terrace, in pre-med, and then and it would take me 2 hours to get home at least. So, but anyway, I would get to my first lectures in the morning, and I was very keen. Believe me, I was desperately trying to stay awake, but boom, I would fall asleep at the desk, and miss at least the first lecture and probably part of the second, and I didn't have good notes. Anyway, Kieran Duffy's angel, he lent me his notes, and I would never have got through pre-med if it wasn't for Kieran lending me his notes. And it's good, he had beautiful notes, very smart guy and very good student, and thank you, Kieran. I'd never have got through without Kieran. Anyway, and last summer, Kieran invited a little group of us, a lovely Dr. Lelia Thornton, who's another wonderful person in my class, another great organizer, and Dr. Aidan McCormick, and a friend, and Dr. Duffy invited a lovely lady who's originally from Germany, who's a pediatrician, I think, working in Ireland. Anyway, he thought he suggested we meet in this Davy Jones pub. And I'd been past that many times. I hadn't even noticed the name of it because, that was the thing, that the office for CUNAV, which is the Irish Catholic Adoption Agency that is now closed, was on that same street, actually the same side as Davy Jones. And I never noticed the pub because I was too busy looking at the bookstores. Plus, the other place that I absolutely love is Bewley's, the coffee shop. And I would have been looking for the Bewley's, the coffee shop, and I would have been meeting Lelia, Dr. Lelia Thornton, there often. And so that I would have been focused on getting to the to Bewley's. I loved the Bewley coffee shops, and they were founded by a Quaker family, Bewley's. Wonderful people, wonderful. The Quakers were the best group in Ireland for helping people during the famine. And some of them died, and an extraordinary lady from the States came, and she did everything she could, and she wrote about the absolute appalling suffering of those poor starving people and all the children dying and terrible things that happened in the mid 1850s in Ireland. And I was thinking about that because I like listening to Tom Parker Bowles, is that right? Yes, I might have the name wrong. Anyway, he is the son of Queen Camilla, and I was listening to him because he's a food writer, a great writer, like great speaker, and he has a new book out, all about recipes from Windsor Palace. Anyway, he's a lovely person to listen to. Seems like a lovely person. They're all lovely. I actually have great. I really wish the British royal family well, and I just find the YouTube videos about them horrible. How do people make them? Who's making them, and what money do they make them? It's just dreadful. Yeah. But anyway, and poking into people's business is awful. But I am very pleased that King Charles III will be coming to open the Canadian Parliament here at the end of the month, and I know, I don't know what type of cancer. I know he's gone through cancer treatment, and I wish him well. And I know he's got to deal with, and I know that he really and truly he wrote that whole Magna Terra. He and that whole family really do love the earth, and they know a lot about it. And this uh, Tom, this food critic, he talks about foraging for mushrooms and how he foraged with his mother, and she would know about them. And that is something that I feel is very true about in my experience, the Anglo-Irish. This and Thomas Peckenham is another example. This great love of nature and understanding of nature, and you can't fake that. You can't, like, you either can know how to put on a pair of Wellington boots, which is hard to do for me. They get stuck straight in my legs. I've fat ankles and they're very hard to get boots on and off. But you can't try. There's a way, you can see people who really do know about farming and the land and animals and plants and things, and people who don't. And I'm in between. Like, I love all that stuff, but I grew up, to my shame, I grew up in a cul-de-sac, and most of my life I've lived in a cul-de-sac. So, but boy, do I love that's animate intelligence. And Queen Elizabeth, Her Royal Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, such an example of a human being who knew how to use power for good, and such a peacemaker. And she knew all about the military, because to be a good peacemaker, you have to understand the military and what they go through, and you really have to understand it all. But of all the things that's wonderful about Queen Elizabeth, her horsemanship. Oh my heavens! Look at her at the trooping of the guards with all those horses. Because horses are beautiful animals, and they're so jumpy. You have to have great chi to be able to calm all those horses and all those riders and do the trooping of the guards. Oh my. Oh, Queen Elizabeth, what a wonderful, wonderful queen, beautiful person, and a beautiful Christian, and a beautiful peacemaker. Anyway, I'm stopping here now, but I am sending you all a blessing. Now, the blessing is especially for those young fellas in, what is it called? Kneecap. Yes. And I feel that your hearts are all very much in the right place. But you need somebody really good helping you. Maybe Otuma. Yeah, he's a great poet who Porrick Otuma. He's a wonderful person. You might need him. You need somebody really wise helping you negotiate. It's very tricky. How to move from, we're all stuck trying to get past colonization. And the worst example right now is Gaza. Colonization was not a good idea, is not a good idea, and we have to stop. But it has been the model, whichever side we're on, whether we're the here in Canada, if you're not Indigenous to Canada, you're supposed to call yourself a settler, and and I'm an Irish Roman Catholic with roots in Northern Ireland. How can I call myself a settler? We've been fighting with the settlers for centuries, right? So it's tricky. Maybe an unwanted guest or uninvited guest. That's another term. Yes, I am. I acknowledge that I am on the land of beautiful, beautiful Beannacht people, and I can honor them and thank them for everything, and thank them for letting me be here, and the Mima and so on. and I can apologize for being an uninvited guest. Maybe overstaying my welcome, but I will do my best to to honor and do anything I can to revive the beautiful, beautiful, beautiful Mi'kmaq language and culture and traditions, and the Innu and their Inuit Amen and Inuktitut, the language of the Inuit. Yeah, so I'll do my best, but we have to move past colonization, and we have to decolonize our minds. We have to stop looking at land and sea as a resource, something to be exploited. No, we are part of all that. We have to be better than all that. We have to love all that. And we have to learn how to live in harmony with nature, not destroying it. And I'm just looking around now because the little book, where's the little book? Just a minute now. I wanted to show you. Well, this Peter Wolleben is a German forester, and he's a great writer. He's producing books all the time. This one I haven't read yet, but it's The Hidden Life of Trees, the Weather Detective. So he's one of the tree writers, and his books tend to be very accessible. So Peter Wolleben is a tree writer. I'm going to head off for a minute now because there's another book. Where did I put it? Oh no. Oh, I don't see the other book that I was getting ready to bring with me somewhere. But this book I'll show you as well. This is a small book, Choosing Compassion: How to Be of Benefit in a World That Needs Our Love. And this is written by Anam Tupten. And this is very interesting to me. I have to learn more because Tupten is definitely a Tibetan name, and he's a Tibetan monk. Let me see. He grew up in Tibet, and at an early age, he began to practice in the Nyingma tradition of Tibetan Buddhism. So so first of all, my friend Cedar told me that actually I should call the Tibetan plateau the land of Bod, and I'm not sure if I'm saying Bod right, so sorry about that. But the land of Bod. So basically, there were different peoples living on that plateau, and within Tibetan Buddhism, there were different traditions, and His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, is very keen on avoiding sectarianism and preference, and it's all about this diversity and unity and inclusion stuff, and equity, which is so healthy and good. But anyway, Anam Thubten grew up in Tibet and at an early age began to practice in the Nyingma tradition. And he's the founder and spiritual advisor of the Dharma Foundation and teaches widely in the United States and internationally. He's the author of No Self, No Problem, The Magic of Awareness and Embracing Each Moment. And he says here, we see so much pain and injustice in the world. How can we make a positive difference? Beloved teacher Anam Thubten invites us to deepen our compassion. Through practices that open our hearts and expand our awareness of connectedness with the world, we will be able to act with courage for the benefit of all. Which is what we need. We need to act with courage and clarity and from a place of love for the benefit of all. And that's who we really are as human beings. But anyway, so this book is one of these deceptive books because look, it looks like a little book, right? It looks small. But you see, the thing is, anything profound, there's a lot in it. Let me see. I just pick up a thing, Walking in Beauty. This is chapter 7, page 45. Let me read. Perhaps many of the problems that we face each day, both globally and personally, come from disconnecting with the sacred. The experience of the sacred is something essential that we are missing right now in this world. We can awaken to this experience by opening our hearts. When we open our hearts, the sacred is something we can all taste and feel. The experience of the sacred is not an idea or concept. It is not simply an esoteric belief. Of course, it can be turned into a concept or belief. You know all about that. When that happens, we are cut off from something very precious and vital. This can lead to a host of problems. We can forget that nature, the environment that surrounds and nurtures us, is rare and precious. We can forget that it is sacred and forget that we ourselves are sacred too. Every human being is sacred. Can you imagine how amazing it would be if humanity suddenly woke up and realized and treated each other accordingly? We would live in a very different world, a much more loving, peaceful, and joyful world. And I just opened that. Look, totally agree. This is Choosing Compassion. And I had this book out because I'm planning to drop it off um, uh, at with the daughter of our lovely local member of Parliament, Joanne Thompson. Now, full disclosure here, I was a member of the Liberal Party between 2016 and 2022, and I was actually chair of the riding when Joanne came forward. And I have known Joanne Thompson for decades. Her sons went to school together. I know her husband. They're lovely people. Lovely. They're all lovely. I love her son, Paddy. We did a course. We ended up on the same course, Dory building together. And they're just wonderful people. And the Thompsons do all sorts of, they support, I can't keep track of all the things they do, but they have forever supported definitely the Newfoundland Symphony Orchestra and all sorts of other music things, Tullamore Festival. They support all sorts of good things for our community. And Joanne was always volunteering left, right, and centre because I was always meeting her at things where she was helping out people. So she's they're very very good people. But all that said, I left the Liberal Party in 2022 because I could not bear having to say that our oil was clean. Meaning that a lot of people here, our province, the eastern province of Canada, Newfoundland and Labrador, is totally at the moment financially dependent on oil and gas. And I don't know when it was that we found like this, black liquid gold, all this oil off the coast of Newfoundland and Labrador a couple of decades ago. I came to live here in 1997, didn't know anything about any of this. I came here to study, and because I was interested in haemophilia, and I documented that this, it's all changing now, but at one point this province had the highest prevalence recorded of mild haemophilia in factor 13, and I've written papers on that, Dr. MF Scully. So that's what I was coming about. Didn't know anything of the other stuff. Anyway, so, but of course, Newfoundland is and Labrador is a very beautiful place. The island of Katemcook, which is the mean my name for it. Fascinating history. Oh my. And again, I have to be terribly careful because the place is just, there's not many people. It's a huge landmass. There's only 500 and something thousand people. But my heavens, people here, very, very, very on the ball. They've tremendous local knowledge, incredibly creative. I mean, the number of artists and writers and comedians and musicians that come out of this place, extraordinary. Anyway, and so extraordinary. But as I was saying, so 30% of our revenue right now, I think, comes from from royalties from oil and gas, and there's lots more oil and gas out there. So a lot of people want to be able to access that and sell that oil and gas, and they see that as our future. Plus, it can seem very, very inappropriate, rude to say anything against oil and gas because, like the everywhere you turned, like this year, the Newfoundland Folk Festival was in trouble, and it's going ahead. And who's the sponsor? Equinor, the big Norwegian company, and some of the nicest, best people I've ever met are Norwegians who were extraordinarily good to me. I met these beautiful Norwegian ladies really within months of when my husband died, August 2014, and I was pretty miserable. And I met them at a yoga and Pilates class, Exhale Yoga and Pilates, beautiful studio in St. John's, gorgeous place. And they were so good to me. Oh my heavens. These Norwegian ladies took me under their wing, and for the years that they lived here, So good to me. Can't say enough good things about these Norwegians. And they were working, or their husbands, either they or their husbands worked for Statoil, now called Equinor. So the people I've met who worked for Statoil or Equinor are literally the best human beings I've ever met. Undoubtedly. Very, very kind, generous, wonderful, and they love nature. So it's all very complicated. I don't know what the answer to it all is, but um, although I love the Norwegians, I do not love their approach to salmon farming at all. Totally opposed to it. Totally opposed to it. And bizarrely, it's not because I particularly like eating. Now, I know a lot of people love the taste of salmon. That's fine. I'm not saying anything about that. People, I've friends, and they just love salmon. I'm not really a huge fish eater. That's just my taste. Like, it's not anything. But I have this deep, deep, deep spiritual culture connection to An Bradon, the salmon. Like, the salmon is sacred to me. And when a couple of years ago, like 3 million salmon died by suicide because they were suffering so much in the pens here, I think with the heat and the lice, and oh God, they go through hell in those pens. It's so cruel, so awful. And how people can do that to salmon, which are such intelligent creatures. And now you can't see that salmon are very intelligent. I mean, for God's sake, could I swim 2,000 kilometers and get home? No. Not only could I not swim, but I would have no sense of direction. And these fish know how to do that. Can you not see that they're highly intelligent? Anyway, in our tradition, An Bradon is the salmon. The salmon is associated with wisdom. You know, Fionn McCool ate the salmon, and that was how he became such a great leader. And I'm with those people who maintain that the Fianna were real, and they actually kept the Romans out of Ireland. And in case you don't know, I'm not a fan of Aristotle, and I'm not a fan of any of the Greek and Roman generals. And I think that poor Alexander, he was only a little 12-year-old boy when he was sent off to be trained by Aristotle, who turned him into a brute and sent him off. And he lived a life of misery, traipsing off, fighting, and then dying at a young age. Is that great? No. Spreading Greek culture. No. That's spreading colonization, coercive control, militarism, imperialism, and the crazy idea that war brings peace. Rubbish. Utter rubbish. Am I clear about that? Yes. Anyway, I have to stop. Calm down. Anyway, the other thing about Anam is that, Anam in the Irish language means my soul. Yeah. And I don't know what it means in Tibetan. I've got to look into that. And Thupten is a Tibetan name that I know, because Thupten Jimpa is the, I do know, like, I don't see him all, I'm not close to him or anything, but he was my official language. He was a brilliant young Geshe when I worked in Gaden Shartsey Monastery in 1984, trying to develop sort of like or I was assessing the health of the child monks there, and I was trying to see what I could do to help with their health. And I was trying to explain immunizations, what that means, and vaccines and the benefits and that sort of thing to the abbots and the monks there. And so I was there for a few months trying to work on a community pediatric project. And when I had these formal meetings with the abbots, Jimfo was my translator. And I don't think I met with them many times other than that, because I had a little group of monks that I was working with, and I was trying to train that. They were trying to explain the whole system to me and how things worked. And then I was trying to explain to them what I thought might help. And I was working with a brilliant, brilliant book. I forget, it was produced by a great American called Where There's No Doctor. And there's a new version of it now. But if you're going anywhere working in any remote areas, that's a great book, Where There's No Doctor. And that was my guide. And I'd also spent a little bit of time at the London School of Tropical Health, and I'd got information there, and which was great. And most importantly, my friend, Dr. Thundup, um, um, who is a fantastic pediatrician. I had met him when he was studying at uh, Crumlin Children's Hospital in Dublin. I was at Temple Street, but he was working there. And he is a very, very brilliant scholar and a great pediatrician. And I was at the time trying to study Majumika philosophy, and I'd heard there was a Tibetan, and I'd gone to meet him, and we ended up studying a lot together because we were both trying to write our memberships exams in pediatrics, and he's brilliant and a very good student, and so part of the reason I passed my membership exams was because I had Dr. Thunder whipping me along, trying to keep me on track. Yeah, so that helped a lot. And then later he went off to work in Darjeeling, and he married his beautiful wife Dickie, and he was the only pediatrician for 3 million children. Anyway, and he was well able for amazing man. He did great work. And then so when I went to India, I first went up to spend a little bit of time to try and learn some things with him, and he was teaching me very useful things. And then I went down to Gad and Chertsey, and I spent a few months there, and I was trying to work out a community program, and that was way back in 1984. So that was and at that time, Thupten Jinpa, Geshe Thupten Jinpa, was a young Geshe. And a Geshe is within that tradition. It's sort of like having a PhD in Tibetan Buddhism. It's not, obviously, it's a different system and a different exam system, but it's very difficult. Same thing. And these people are very smart. And it's a very tough system. And he was brilliant. And then much later, I had then come to Toronto in 1985 because I wanted to train at the Hospital for Sick Children to become a children's cancer specialist. And there I had been in touch with some Tibetans there. And then later, after I married my husband, Joe, and I went to live in Montreal. At one point, we were in Montreal 1988. Or 89, probably, I'd have to calculate, around 88, 89. And we left in 92 to go to New Brunswick to work. But we trained in Montreal, and we did meet Thupten Jinpa not very often. He was very, very busy with all sorts of things, and we were also busy. But we did meet him at least once or twice because we were trying to support something with the Tibetan community. And then we moved to St. John, New Brunswick, and I didn't meet any Tibetans there, and none so far in Newfoundland and Labrador. So but I kept in touch with Dr. Thundup and his family, and then he went to work in Hong Kong for some years, and later when my husband and I were going to Vietnam, we went to visit these people and beautiful people in Hong Kong. And then we went to Vietnam. And then another time, the Thundups came to visit us here with their children, the beautiful children. And of course, the weather didn't cooperate. And Dr. Thundup was very organized, and he had planned all sorts of boat tours and good things, and couldn't do it because of the weather. And we ended up going bowling. This was before all the beautiful indoor places like the rooms and the Geo Centre, which has probably come with money from the oil industry, have all been built. So anyway, going back to everything, it's very tricky because so the reason I left the Liberal Party in 2022 was I just could not say our oil is clean, and anyway, I don't know what the answer is, but I know we should not be digging up any more oil. But how are we going to survive without it? That I don't have the answer to. So I don't know. And it can sound very rude, or like, don't bite the hand that feeds you sort of thing to say anything about oil and gas here because we're so dependent. But um, I feel we do have to talk about it and try and work out how we're going to move forward and move away from viewing nature as a resource. It has to be, we have to live in harmony with nature. And I was looking for a book, can't find it now, by Robin Wall Kimmerer, Professor Robin Wall Kimmerer. And she's got a book, The Serviceberry, and it's all about how in her beautiful Potawatomi tradition, and she's a professor of biology, she's another brilliant scientist, another of these two-eyed seers who can see things from different directions. And she's got beautiful ideas about the honorable harvest, and she's a very gentle, beautiful person. So Professor Robin Wall Kimmerer is somebody, I was looking for her little book to show you, but I can't find it. So quickly. So I am stopping there, but I am going to go with another little book. And this is my favorite prayer book, the Glenstall Book of Prayer. And this was given to me by one of my friends called Mary, who right now is, I hope, having a wonderful time. She lives here, but she's right now back home in Ireland. She's in Kerry. And I hope she's just having a wonderful time with her wonderful family. God bless you, Mary. Anyway, I'm reading for your book here. And I love this. This is Beannacht chách, which means blessings on everyone. Nar tú a fear ag fós, ná ganamh rá, ná drucht bhain, ná na beannachtaí ó rí na ngrás, gach anam, a bhí, a bheith, ná atá. I'm going to say it again because it's so nice. Oh, I'm going to say it in English, so you know what I'm saying if you're English speaking. And then I'll say it again in Irish, just because the sound is so nice. So in English, this blessing says, not more generous, the growing blades of grass, nor the grains of sand on the shore, nor the dewdrops on the pasture, be the blessings of the King of Grace on every soul that was, that will be, or that is. Isn't that beautiful? This is from page 114, the Glenstall Book of Prayer, Beannacht chách, blessings on everyone. So like in the Eastern, like Hindu, Buddhist tradition, there's this idea of metta, loving kindness that we're trying to generate and send out. And blessings, I also was going to try and read to you from the Thanksgiving address, which is a beautiful Haudenosaunee prayer, which I was trying to read every day and which I must get back to. And I just don't see where I put that. Anyway, but because the beautiful Native American traditions of gratitude and blessings, it's so good. And again, this is about an animate intelligence because we are animate beings and we live in an animate world and we have to interact with that world. When we are in harmony with each other and with nature, miracles happen and we're happy. And there was an original blessing. This whole original sin thing is totally rubbish, not part of Christianity. No, it's Greek. And not real Greek either. It's from these awful, disconnected people who are, promoting war and imperialism and all sorts of rubbishy things. So no, there wasn't original sin. What there is intergenerational trauma, and a lot of it, a huge amount of it. Because and they're talking about that in The Economist as well, breaking the cycle, whether it is the awful stuff going on in Gaza or breaking the cycle of violence and trauma that goes generation to generation. The way, what's his name, Creepy Musk, Errol Musk has passed on his trauma and traumatized his son, Elon, and this happens has been happening within families, and this trauma is passed on from generation to generation. And unless we are healed, those of us who have experienced trauma when we have been brutally beaten or sexually abused or financially abused, emotionally abused, I've had it all. Our reaction, we become very angry, we're traumatized, and we have to heal that or we pass it on. So trauma is either addressed and healed or it is passed on and it creates more trauma. So there isn't original sin. There's original blessing, and then there's trauma, unhealed intergenerational trauma. That's what we're dealing with. But anyway, as part of the healing, I am praying right now. I am blessing, and I'm blessing in particular all the people suffering in Gaza, Israel, Lebanon, Yemen, that entire region. I am particularly blessing all the many, many, many people who are trying to bring peace and work for peace, particularly organizations like Standing Together and Women Wage Peace and Women of the Sun and AllMap, I forget about that, Alliance for Middle Eastern Peace, Roots, Breaking the Silence, and then there's all sorts of Palestinian groups. I've left people out because there's so many. I'm a member of the Canadian. What is it? Canadian. Oh dear. Canadian Friends of Peace Now. There's American Friends of the Parents Circle. Like there's a lot of different TILAS. There are many, many people doing the hard, difficult work needed for peace. But the first thing is there has to be a ceasefire. My God, there has to be a ceasefire. You have to stop this bloodbath. We have to rescue these children and heal them. And all these heartbroken people and all these starving people and all these people who don't have water and don't have access to medical care because all their hospitals have been bombed. It's terrible. We have to stop this. This is a stain on all of humanity. And we have to stop pointing fingers. This is not a time for pointing fingers. We have to stop the bloodbath. Stop it. And the people with power have to cut off the money, cut off the arms to both sides. Stop it. Stop. Ceasefire. And then all the people who really want peace, and there are a lot of them, have to be given an opportunity to find that difficult path, and it will take a very long time. But that's the path we have to go on. Anyway, so this blessing is going to everybody looking for peace in that situation. And it also extends to everybody in Europe, Ukraine, Russia. And I would ask people to go to the Amnesty website and to support the Russian peacemakers, a lot of whom are very young, men and women. A lot seem to be women, and they're being sent to these brutal penal colonies just for writing poetry about the awfulness of what happened in various cities. I can't keep track of it all. Mariupol, whatever. Like these, one of them's only 19, wrote a poem and is being imprisoned. No. And I woke up last night thinking maybe I need to learn Russian because I know Russia is full of mothers who want an end to all this. I know the mothers of Russia do not want their children dying in senseless, meaningless, endless wars. They do not. I also know that whether it's Russia or America or Canada, a disproportionate number of people who join the military because they don't have other options are minorities and people, indigenous people, Irish people who fought for the British Crown, poor Irish people who fled the famine and found themselves from the same village fighting both opposite sides of the Civil War in the US because they got off at different ports or something, or a different week or whatever was going on there. They were trying to escape a famine in Ireland, and they found themselves shooting at each other from their same villages on different sides of the bloody Civil War in the US. And eventually some of them made it home. Oh, war. Not a good thing. Not a good thing. We have to calm down. I have to calm down. Okay, so now on with the blessings. So the blessings, this blessing is going to Musk and Trump and all those people. What you're doing is totally wrong. Totally wrong. But I still bless you because we are all interconnected. That's it. So I'm sending blessings out to everybody, particularly all the people who are suffering, all the peacemakers, all the people who want to reduce suffering, all the humanitarians, the teachers, the doctors, the firefighters, the activists, all those, the journalists, all those who speak truth. Anyway, Beannacht ar chách, blessings on everyone. Nar a tuga fear ag fás, nó ganibh ar rá, nó drucht ar bhain, nó na bannachtaí ó rian an grás ar gach anam a bhí a bheith ná atá. Not more generous, the growing blades of grass, nor the grains of sand on the shore, nor the dewdrops on the pasture, be the blessings of the King of Grace on every soul that was, that will be, or that is. So I'm sending this blessing to you all, and I'm also saying, Howla, Howla, Howla. And Thomas, or anybody who's going to try and join. So now I have been for years trying to get groups together to teach the 8-week Compassion Cultivation Training Meditation course, a wonderful course, not my course, developed by Tupten Jimpa, was the main faculty. And I was looking around for his book. He's written a great book, A Fearless Heart, fantastic book, and autobiographical. So Tupten Jimpa was the main faculty in 2009 at the Center for Compassion and Altruism Research and Education at Stanford Medical School, and then a whole group of extraordinarily large number of people at Stanford. I don't know all their names. The co-director of the Center for Compassion and Autism Research and Education is a Dr. Jim Doty, and he's does also thing neurosurgeon, entrepreneur, fantastic man. And I saw he was posting on LinkedIn that he was recovering. I don't know if he had surgery or something. It sounded like he was in rehab, and so I am sending blessings as well to Dr. Doty, and also to the people, the kneecap people, to say, please keep your warm hearts and be wise about what you're doing. Be wise. Don't stir the pot. It's very tricky. I know you have to speak up, but without stirring the pot, and that's it's very difficult. But what you're doing is great. But get really good advisors. That's kneecap. Who else? Oh yes. Yeah, so Father Lawrence Freeman, who is the head of the World Community of Christian Meditation, another group I'm in, and he's going through cancer therapy, God bless him. So this is for you, Father Lawrence. So for all the teachers, all the people who are, in need of a blessing, so I'm sending a blessing and good wishes. And with the 8-week course, so much going on. I was hoping to start teaching groups last week, and I was trying to find times that would work. And it has ended up that the people who want to take the course at this time, the time that's good for them is Tuesdays from 2 to 4 Newfoundland Standard Time, which is 90 minutes ahead of Eastern Time, or from 9 to 11 on Friday mornings Newfoundland Standard Time, which would be 7:30 to 9:30 Eastern Time. And if anybody's interested in joining any of the groups, please check out my website, becompassionatenl.ca, and join the Mighty Network or send me an email. Namaste.